If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you are missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to episode 455 of Picks and Ponies on the HHH Racing Podcast Network. I'm your fill-in host tonight, Pete Visco, filling in for Howard Kravitz, who I think is just sort of lounging around at home, being lazy and sort of ditching us tonight. But somehow me and my co-host will go on without him. Tonight, we're going to be covering the late pick 5 at Turfway Park this week, which is a track we don't cover super often, but they do have a 20-point Derby prep, which we will get into later. So it's an interesting sequence, pretty big field. So it was a tough one to handicap. I think my co-host and I will get into some of the details about each of those races. Before I do that, let me hit a couple housekeeping items. As you can see right there on the bottom, please, if you're watching this video on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. We want to get our subscribe count up as high as we possibly can. Also, hit that like button. We get a lot of views, but not always a lot of likes. So hit it. It doesn't take much time. Just smash it, like we like to say. And also hit that notification bell. The notification bell doesn't do anything except it'll notify you when sort of ad hoc episodes come up or when any scheduled episodes are coming up, just so you don't miss any. If you like to listen on audio, you can listen anywhere you want. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, Overcast, which is who I use. They're the best. Try them out. Also, on X, the show's X handle is at HHH Racing Pod. So that's Howard and the show. So definitely give us a follow there as well. We appreciate it. Power Pick Tip Sheet. Again, it's having a really good year, like it has been over the course of all the years we've been doing it. If you want information, go below the video player. There's a link to Patreon where you could sign up. And if you just want to see what the tip sheet is about, go to our website, which I'll throw on the screen in a second here, hhhracingpodcast.com. Go on there. You could see sample tip sheets. You can see results from prior tip sheets. You can see basically lots of stuff about the podcast as a whole, but from a tip sheet standpoint, at least you could see some examples. So if you want to subscribe, but you're not sure, check it out, see if what you like. There's ABC grids, price plays, spot plays. Now we're covering the Coast to Coast Pick 5 as well. So there's lots happening on there. Definitely check it out. Last item, right after this show at 9:30 Eastern, check out Wire to Wire. That's our Thursday night show that covers the Saturday Coast to Coast Pick 5 from Gulfstream and Santa Anita. I think tonight will be hosted by Noah Maher, and I don't remember who his co-host is, but it doesn't matter. It'll be somebody fabulous since that's an HHH person. So stay tuned after our show. Check them out as well. Now, let's get into it. We don't want to wait too long. Let's get into bringing on my co-host, my normal co-host, who's here coming from hopefully not too cold in Massachusetts, from the Saratoga special and soon to be acclaimed author, my friend, Paul Halloran. What's up, Paul? How's it going, man?
Not an allowance author, Pete, acclaimed author?
Acclaimed, allowance, more like a graded...
You got it right. You got it right.
I think more like a graded stakes author. How's that?
Well, we appreciate your optimism.
Let's see. As a matter of fact, I have a little surprise for you. Let's bring this up first. I got 3 things I want to talk about before we get into the sequence with you. How about this right here? What's going on here?
Not bad, huh?
Yeah. So why don't you just give everyone, maybe we have some new viewers or listeners, and give them a little update on what's going on here.
Well, you can. It'll be in your mailbox on May 5th, which is happens to be my younger daughter Martha's birthday, appropriately enough. And yeah, it's been on pre-sale for a few months now, and we'll have some news, especially for our Kentucky friends. I am going to be, of course, I will be shamelessly promoting this book everywhere, Pete. But it's going to start off in Kentucky. I will have some news within a few weeks. I'm going to do 4 or 5 events in May to kick it off in the Bluegrass, where the story literally was born. So thank you for bringing that up, Pete.
Of course. And what we'll do is once you have all those set up, we will put information about where you're going to be on the website. And again, if you go to the website, like I didn't send out this link, but if you go to our website under, I think it's publications is the page, you will see all the information on how to order Paul's book. And go ahead now, book it in advance so it's there the first day and you can start reading. Is that when's the Derby this year? It's usually, I mean, obviously it's around that date. What date is it?
It's just before that, Pete. It's
Okay.
May 2nd, I believe. So pretty good timing there.
Perfect.
Waiting, might have some real good news on that, but a little premature. But we're hoping to be able to do some promotion right around Derby time.
That's fantastic. Let's check real quick. Let's see who's joining us in the chat today. Of course, we have Katie. Let's bet some winners at Turfway. We'll see what we can do. We got Good Cat. Greetings from the warm and balmy Midwest. Yeah, warm and balmy, I assume. We got Hot Rod Horse players. Always here to, I don't handicap the card until I get through the Thorograph. DRF tells you only so much. We like to hear that. That makes perfect sense. What else we got? Let's see if we have any. Wow, that's it right now in terms of just comments. Let's get some comments going in the chat. But two other things I wanted to hit with you, Paul, before we get into the races from last weekend, since it was a pretty eventful weekend. First, what'd you think of? Let me bring us on a little bigger here. Might as well see our pretty faces. What do you think about Paladin in the Risen Star? It's hard to say. And do you think he sort of cemented himself as a favorite for the Derby, put himself on the right path? What do you think of his performance and sort of where he stands in your mind?
Yeah, I think he was fine. I saw some people questioning that, it wasn't visually that impressive. But, I think if you watch the races, that track was probably more conducive to speed that day. So I think it was really the perfect outcome for Chad Brown. Chad really likes the bluegrass as a final prep, and obviously could have gone there anyway. But I do think there's a difference. Being in the Derby on May, whatever that was, May 14th. Pardon me, February 14th, and 50 points. Let's face it, you are in. You might be in with 30 this year by the time they're done. So he's in. So to whatever degree there is any pressure, you don't want to have to go into that last prep, Pete, having to win,
Yeah.
or even second. So Chad does like that, the bluegrass as a road to the Derby. So I think he was fine. I think our friend Uncle Howard sitting there at 40-1. The goal of any future bet, primary goal, of course, is to get in the gate. And now, as those of us sovereignty fans found out with the Breeders' Cup Classic, when the horse had been in California for almost a week, you still every day has to go right, to get in the gate.
I mean, we've seen them scratch on the morning of, so you're never happy until the gates open and your horse is actually running, I assume.
And especially Pete with the Derby, with his 23-year-olds. And I get wrapped up. I watch the shows every morning when they come on a few weeks before, and I just think it's one of those races where even a minor blip puts you really behind the eight ball. A horse misses a day of training. Thank you for shopping. So I think Paladin was fine. I think he looked. It was somewhere between workmanlike and impressive, but again, he did what he had to do to win. I think it's fairly clear he's going to get better as the distances go up.
Yeah.
So, I really don't see a lot of knocks. I guess the number came back, low 90s, Pete? Was
like
it
90? Yeah, 93-ish, I think, if I remember. Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think I think the one thing we've seen, and there's a ton of preps left, is we haven't had that super flashy where we trust a horse. Like we've seen even the horses that have run sort of flashier races, they're ones that we don't necessarily trust going longer, maybe like Nearly and a couple other ones that were like, I have some doubts about them, even though maybe they look good in this early season race. But I don't think we've had that one where it's like, oh my God, he ran a 102 buyer. I mean, that's what everybody will wind up looking at. He ran a 102 buyer and he won impressive and looks like the distance is no trouble, but we have a crap load of races to get to that point. So
I don't know that we would have had that if the favorite Ted Noffey had stayed on the trail. He was kind of one of those horses that was just kind of a winner, but I don't know that he was going to put up any 110s before Derby Day.
Me neither. Yeah.
So I think what we're saying is, and again, there's still two major preps in all the locations, right? We have the Fountain of Youth and the Florida Derby. We have the Louisiana Derby. We have the Rebel and the Arkansas Derby.
Yep.
We have the Santa Anita Derby. So there's still a long way to go. But at this point, aren't we looking at it? If you were to say today, Pete, what the morning line, what the favorite is going to be in the Derby, are we looking at like 4-1, 7-2, 4-1, 9-2?
I was even going to say it could be even 5. It wouldn't shock me. I guess it depends on if we get enough impressive winners, where they're not like, oh, this was sort of a fluke race and a really disappointing race, and that winner's not going to take a ton of money. But I think if we get a good horse winning in all those locations, I think 9-2, and we like that, right? I mean, that's what you want. That's where the money comes from. But we'll have plenty of time to talk Derby. The other thing I really wanted to hit real quick, and this is a horse that we have no questions about, the Saudi Cup and Forever Young. What'd you think of that performance?
Yeah, you know what? There's a lot of words you could use to describe Forever Young. I think cool would be the one I start with. He's just a cool horse. You'd like to have his frequent flyer points.
Oh my gosh. He obviously he doesn't get he's definitely not getting any jet lag, that horse. He can run anywhere, he travel. But I think every race is a different country basically.
It's
many in a row now. Yeah.
Can we get them to go say, you know what, let's the only thing not on the resume is Saratoga, and bring them to the Whitney on the way to the Breeders' Cup?
Nice,
that'd be nice, wouldn't it? But yeah, just a cool horse. And I gotta say that I thought Nysos ran really well.
Yeah.
Ran very, very well, especially losing like that to Forever Young. So, he will be a serious player. Now, he may still have to answer the 2-turn mile and an eighth question, but I was very impressed with Nysos and Forever Young. Just again, a cool horse, and hopefully he stays on the trail. I guess he's Dubai next, and who knows after that. But I certainly, Pete, plan on being in Lexington come Breeders' Cup weekend, and I'd love to see him there.
I mean, having Forever Young and Nysos and Sovereignty and Baeza and journalism and whoever comes out of this 3-year-old crop, that we always like when the older horses, the older dirt horses are top notch, and it looks like we've had that the last few years, and it looks like we have another pretty good crop here. But yeah, I mean,
speaking of Baeza, Pete. A resident of Mr. Bill Mott's farm.
What do you think of that? I mean, we want to get into the races soon, so I don't want to belabor these too long. But what do you think of that as a Sovereignty fan? And does it sort of disappoint, though, because now they probably won't hook up all the way until the Classic, which I guess is a little
I mean, I don't know how many times the late, great John Sherriss was dying to run against Sovereignty prior to the Classic anyway, after last year. I mean, look at anything can happen on one day, right? But, he certainly proved last year. But, they're a year older and Sovereignty's coming off. But, as far as what I think of it, I saw some folks questioning it. And, I mean, if you have that horse, taking him to Bill Mott's a bad idea?
Yeah,
I
think just from a competition standpoint, I could see people being a little sour because the hope would be, and I think isn't that something that's missing a little bit in horse racing, is we don't get the sort of ongoing rivalries as much as we would like.
Yeah, and I would say this, Pete, that's probably going to be the case, but I will tell you this: if they both line up and there's a very logical race for both of them, I don't think Mott is the type of guy to not do that. I'm not saying he's going to do it, but I don't think he automatically rules it out. I mean, he
in
is
the end,
horse
the owners
first, as
still are
we've
going
seen.
to want to. The owners are going to.
Correct.
They might want to go to a race, and if they want to run in the Whitney or wherever race they feel like is something they want to
Right.
win, and then that's what we hope.
I mean,
for.
you don't think that was discussed before they moved him to Mott's Pond? I
No,
mean,
they wouldn't talk about.
Hey,
something
Bill,
like
about that horse in stall number 1.
Well, let's see that one get on the track. Let's see them all get on the track first before we. But we hope that they're all come back. They're all healthy and everything.
And Pete, one more bit of news, and
Yeah,
we're
go ahead.
delaying talking about this, very skillfully delaying talking about this Turfway sequence. I did a big magazine feature coming out, by the way, Mid-Atlantic Thoroughbred, the March edition. I did kind of the cover-to-cover Bookham Dano feature.
Yeah.
And right after I did it, I talked to Derek Ryan, because right after I did it, Derek Ryan decided to say, well, maybe Dubai has not been ruled out. You know, after I got through telling him that my grand plan was Sovereignty and Bookham Dano running in Dubai and trying to go.
That'd be awesome.
So he's back on the work tab with 2 good works, and I guessed I haven't talked to Jay, the principal owner, but I guessed they're not ruling out the Golden Shaheen for Bookham Dano. I'm not saying he's going, but it'd be, look at, he's a gelding, and there's no stallion fees coming, so if you can go over there and run for a couple of $1 million, look what he did when he shipped to Saudi, right? He got nailed in the last jump by Forever. We were just talking about how great Forever Young is. How great was that race when Forever Young nipped Bookham Dano, who beat Bentonato? How about the top 3 of the Saudi Derby in 2020?
Pretty good, right? Yeah, those 3. I think they turned out all right. Those 3, they turned.
So
out.
Bookham Dano maybe. So I don't know, Pete. I might have to make a last minute travel plan and go with my New Jersey friends, Pete.
Well, luckily, I'm sure that ticket to Dubai is pretty cheap. So that's not.
Well, I tell you, Pete, if I hit this pick 5 at Turfway tomorrow night, it will be.
That is that's a beautiful segue, because I think this might be one that pays. So that's what we hope. And it's funny because in the last race, I'm interested to talk, because you had the horse that I have on top. You had him in second. So when we get to that, I'll be interested, because that could be one that closes out a nice pricey one for us. Well, let's jump in. We're covering the late pick 5 at Turfway, races 6 through 10. The post time 8:25 p.m. Eastern. So you can bet a lot of other races before you get to this. Hopefully you build your bankroll, because you might need it if you're playing like a caveman ticket for this one. You might need a pretty big bankroll. So race 6 kicks us off. We have allowance optional claiming 25, going a mile, with a purse of 102,000 on the all-weather, or the synth, as I still call it. And we have a deep field of 12 with the favorite, the number 4, 5 aside. Let's see where you and I, if we're going with the favorite. And of course, we are in Simpatico right there in this first race. Pete is going with 4-1-3. Paul is going with 4-8-11. So Paul, why don't you talk about why you like? We'll scroll to this number 4, 5 aside. What do you like about this one?
Well, first, Pete, you don't see too many horses cutting back a quarter of a mile to get to a mile.
Right? Yeah.
Right? This horse ran a mile and a quarter twice, and got led at the stretch call both times, which would actually put him in the winner's circle at a mile race. So.
Yep.
I think it's interesting that John Service has a string down there. Of course, John Parks based of Smarty Jones fame, just a really, really good trainer. He picks up Rodriguez, who is really one of the top jockeys down there. And I was just on the cutback angle, Pete, just thinking that this horse, based on that, could get the trip. Obviously, going a mile doesn't have to be on the lead, and maybe better off not, but should be in touch with the field. And coming off those 2 races, isn't he supposed to have a lot left in the tank? She.
Oh, there we go. It's an early one. I would have did that too. I didn't look first. For anybody who doesn't know, when we misgender the horses, we take a drink on this show. So that's what we did there. Yeah, and as you could see here, the 4 here is at least from Timeform's perspective, the 4 is actually sitting sort of a stalking trip. I
That'd
don't
be
know
good.
if that's how. Yeah, I think that's not a bad thing. I mean, she has sat off, but she's got a couple races where she's passed horses, but not a ton. So you don't know. But I think the way I look at it is people might look and say, "Oh, she's 0 for 2 in the money. She hasn't hit the board on the synth at least since she moved there." But like you said, led late, going 1.25 miles both times. Now you're getting a more reasonable distance. I think she could just sit right off here. I don't know. She seems like in a tough race, she seems logical where at least she's going to give you a run. Now you just got to see if the mile helps her hold on a little better.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Pete. And look at you're not going to see a lot of favorites being picked in the sequence, and you won't see a lot of favorites winning in the sequence, I predict. So
no,
let's hope we can get one. Let's hope we can get one here before the madness begins.
I mean, I don't think I'd be singling this one to begin with anyway. So
singling this sequence.
Let's go to your next horse. Well, then we'll hit mine after that. You have the 8, Yes Indeed, here at 12-1. So you're going a little bit of price. Cherie DeVoe, who is going to be a Hall of Famer, right? Of course, as we say on this show.
Future Hall of Famer, Cherie DeVoe. I told her that in the tunnel at Del Mar after she won the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile 2024.
I love it.
She had a big win today with Reagan's Honor at Fairgrounds, a horse named after her, both after her daughter and President Reagan. Very impressive allowance win today. Yeah, this I think I'd love to talk to her because, this might be the last option. They paid $850 for this horse, a Bolt d'Oro out of a Creative Cause mare, and it has certainly not worked out very well. Started out fine, took money at the fairgrounds twice and broke the maiden, but it hasn't run badly, against winners, but just hasn't been able to get the job done. And it just seems, when they put her on turf, Pete, it just seems like the style was to go even further back, right? So I don't know. Is this a desperation? Is this a Hail Mary pass by Cherie? I'm not sure, but I do know she is a tremendous trainer. I do know I love seeing those layout stable silks. She reminds me of the late, great Barbaro. Yeah. And at 12-1, I'm willing to take a stab that maybe this would be the right surface.
I mean, I think that's there is I won't go into the breeding behind. I won't go to the screens, but I thought there was solid synthetic breeding on both sides, so at least there's something there. But like you said, they're maybe just reaching. Now you're finally getting a decent price. Here, Jim Pilar's. A lot of layoff lines on Yes Indeed. Horse may have physical issues. Yeah, that could be the case for sure. This one does a lot of stops and starts, but I don't know. We're getting a little bit of a consistent work tab going now. Hopefully,
on the Keeneland training track synthetic, by the way.
Yeah,
not on the main track.
Which you like to see. I thought I did have Cherie 1 for 15 wins going turf to synth in allowance races, but again, that's a pretty small sample size, and I don't know. A lot of these synthetic stats I think are a little tough to sort of figure out. We do see just for the viewers, there's a couple different things you see. If you could see on the screen here, there's a synthetic Tomlinson rating 362, which that's a pretty good rating. That's generally a rating that says how they're going to be on that surface if you're not normally a DRF user. And then even on here on Timeform, I sometimes look at, they have a breeding rating, and you could see here it tells you basically on all surfaces where I don't know exactly their calculation, but it's just something where they score it out of 100. So this one definitely has at least some synthetic breeding. If you follow any of these ratings, it's something to lean on. And it's like you said, it's an $850,000 horse. So maybe there's something under the hood somewhere that they're looking to get out. I have a price too. I'm going to go with the 1 Street Where You Live, which is actually a pretty cool name. This is one, again, similar where they've bounced around with this horse. They've bounced around from surface, I should say. So they started out on dirt, then they went turf, then dirt, turf. As you can see, like some of them looked like they got rained off, but then was on the synthetic for 4 races here at Turfway, 2 wins, a second, and a third. And these figures, what I liked was at this same optional claiming 25 level, you have a second when the horse was just sort of stuck way back into a hot pace and closed pretty well for a second, then came back at the level and won. Now that was going 1.25 miles. That both of those were going 1.25 miles. So now we're cutting back to the mile, but this horse has run pretty well at a mile, has a win and a third going a mile as well. So I'm just looking at this one saying they saw those last 2 on the turf. One was 1.5 miles. The last one was optional claiming 80. Maybe they just shot too high with this one in the last couple, Paul. Now we see it all the time, especially at like the claiming and like the optional claiming level, where they get a little happy with a result, they shoot too high, and then the horse gets back to sort of their like level and their like skill level. And then you see them maybe pop again. And that's where I was with this one. Any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I put her in my sequence based on you having her second.
Oh, lovely.
That's what
I
think.
Appreciate that. That is lovely. I mean, again,
that's my thought.
I think this is the kind of race where we can go a bunch of different ways. You have, let's hit the last one. We'll talk about Defiant last real quick. You have in third at 5-1, lightly raced, only on the dirt. Dale Romans, 0 for 10 in his last 10 going dirt to synth, but this one at least is showing some talent, at least on the dirt. Broke the maiden last time out. What do you like about this one?
Well, yeah, and I typically, and this is not backed by data, more anecdotal, but I don't know what you think, Pete. It seems to me like the horses coming off maiden wins don't win that frequently at Turfway, but again, that's a seems to me, so don't bet a penny off that. But having said that, this horse ran well enough, took some money. It's one of those Churchill Downs $1 million maiden race, $121,000 maiden special. Dale doesn't run. He's stable in Kentucky. Obviously, doesn't ship up there a lot. So I don't know if it's just because the race came up and the horse needed a race, and if you're going to run Kentucky this time of year, that's where you're going to go. The horse has been, this also could be a, just a on the road back type of race. He just wanted to get her started. So I don't love the horse, but you do pick up Machado and Dale, maybe future Senator Romans, is winning. Last year, won at a 20% clip, so he picks his spots pretty well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And again, I think all we'll see in this whole sequence is, I don't think there's any standouts in any of these. So I think you can make solid cases for a lot of different horses. So I think that one makes perfect sense. Let's move on to the seventh race. We have maiden special weight. Purse $100,000. We're going 5.5 again on the synth. I don't need to say that. All these races are on the synth. They're all weather, as we would like to call it. Another one, we have a big field of 10 going, and this one, the favorite, again, no super low favorites in this sequence, which I like. But we have the number 1, Princess Julie, at 5-2. And let's see where I should probably have this up. Let's see where you and I are going. I am going with 8-7. Paul is going with 7-8-3. So we actually agree on the exacta here. Paul, we will start with you. You are going with the 7. And sorry, I've blurred out our numbers here. We are going with the 7 horse, Arlo's Gammy, first time starter for Kelsey Danner. What do you like about this one? Is this one of those where I just want the fresh face because I don't like the horses that ran already kind of thing? Or there is something to that, because I took a long look at the 3, another first timer. And just to prove that I am not a hunch player, my wife's name is Julie, and I don't have this horse on my top 3. So I guess my father will be very mad at you for that, since
I guess I would have to include her in the caveman, because if I went 4 for 5 and didn't have her, of course I'd never tell her that.
You can't tell her that. You'd be in the doghouse.
So Bo Liam as a synthetic sprint sire, they're 20%. The Dam Biofuel. The Dam herself won 6 times on the synthetic, including a graded stakes. this was that was a good horse, Biofuel.
Yeah.
Kelsey is, just okay with first timers, 10%, but we have seen her do very well on this circuit. I like the fact that this horse has been training here for quite a while. I mean, a long while. I think her first work there was all the way back on December 4th. So almost 3 months, 8-1. So you add, and as you said, I could actually see my knock against Princess Julie was, 37-1, 14-1, 25-1, and now 5-2. I really, that trend I don't like. I didn't bet her at those other times, but I don't know that I want a horse at 5-2 that's been those odds. The horse that I'm kind of against, Pete, that is taking money, and you have her second, so I'll let you talk about her. On the win end, anyway, I didn't want any part of the two. I think this horse is going to take a lot of money. 9 chances. I get it. Only 2 on the synthetic and a decent fourth and a good second. So, certainly can win off that. But I just didn't. I didn't want that on the top end. So let the price shopping begin, Pete.
I'm with you. I mean, I have the 7 in third, but I definitely had the 7 as a win contender. Yeah, Kelsey Danner, 3 for 40, only first time starters on the synth, on the all weather. So that threw me. That's what I sort of used to maybe drop her down just a couple pegs, but she was definitely a win contender. Yeah, I'll go to the 2 real quick, even though I have the 8 on top. We'll hit the 2 since you brought her up. Yeah, she's one of those that you hit a tipping point where you're like, okay, this horse is a career maiden and is just going to be a maiden for a while. I don't know if we're there yet, specifically for me because of the surface switch. So at least this one woke up a bit because it was pretty bad for the most part, or not very good, at least on the dirt. They went to the turf, was okay. Then they went to the synth and was better, and then better again with Lasix. Now we're second time Lasix. We're staying on the synth. We got, we're at least getting maybe to where it's a comfortable surface from a figure standpoint since she moved to turf and synth. Her figures have gotten more in line with the rest of the field and sort of put herself near the top. So, and one thing we look at, and I'll mention this. So you see she has a 59 and a 53 from a buyer standpoint. And one thing I just want to point out, I know we do that on here sometimes. She has a 76 and an 86 on time form. And those are, that equates sort of a 20-point difference. So that equates to like a 66 and a 56. So from a time form standpoint, she looks to be trending in the right direction. And again, in a field where I didn't really love a lot of horses, that trending in the right direction was enough to put her in second for me.
Yeah, I could see it. I
can see from your standpoint too, where I'm like, this isn't one that I necessarily love. It's a lesser of many evils at this point. We both have the 8. I have the 8 on top, Kilby Girl. You have the 8 in second, so we both like this horse. Again, this is one who debuted on the dirt back in October. Now coming back, it's a gun runner out of a Constitution mare, so the breeding is pretty solid. That my one concern was, will this be a little short for this horse? That was my one thought. But we're picking up Lasix again. I looked at has a 96 on that time form breeding scale. There was 12% gun runners, 12% wins in synthetic sprints. There wasn't much on the dam side, except the Grand Dam was fully a synthetic horse. So at least there's something in the blood there. And then I had Wesley Ward, a couple decent stats. He got 2 wins and a place going dirt to synth in his last 3 when he's made in special weight level. And then he's 6 for 14 on the win end with second time starters and first-time Lasix in synthetic sprints. Now, that's a very granular, specific stat, but 6 for 14 isn't something to sneeze at. So, obviously, he at least knows, hey, this horse might need Lasix, and I think maybe this surface switch to the synth could be something that benefits this horse, and the statistics show that. And this horse was bet down to 2-1 on debut, so there was something there. So I think this is one that maybe that first race was hopefully the outlier, and this one you get the better performance. What do you think? What do you like about this one?
I think in general, Pete, not so granular. Wesley Ward over the last 5 years, all second-time starters going dirt to synthetic is 15%. So
that's good.
That's solid enough. Now look at when they signed the ticket for $275,000 in the Keeneland Sales Pavilion in September of 24, one of the premier yearling sales. I don't think they were saying, hey, you know what? If we get really lucky in our second career start, we'll be in a maiden special at Turfway in February of 26. I don't think that was the goal. No. But that doesn't matter. We're just trying to pick the winner.
Yeah, that doesn't matter today. Let's worry about today.
And, you mentioned all the numbers, and the other number, Pete, if you look at, Wesley and Rodriguez, especially here at Turfway, are just totally lights out. I would think by far the top trainer jockey combination. So the added Lasix could be a factor. Obviously could not run with Lasix as a 2-year-old in that race. Might this horse be overbet a tad? I think so. I don't think you'll get 4-1 because of all those stats that you and I are blabbering on about.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at it from a pick 5 point of view. I'm not playing the horse flat unless she were to really drift. I may play the 7 flat just because of the number. But yeah, I want to use the 8 on the A line, Pete, and hope that they get some of that 275 back Saturday.
You got to start somewhere, right? When you're building up that.
Yes.
That nest egg, you got to start in some race, and this a good. Hey, it was $100,000, so we'll start with a nice 60 here. That'll get us some of that money back. All right, let's move on. I didn't have anyone else there to hit
negative.
On. Let's move on to the next. We have the 8th race, which another allowance optional claiming 62.5. We have a purse of 102,000 going 6 furlongs on the synthetic. A little bit of a smaller field, but not much. We still have 9 going here. And again, we have another 5-2 favorite, the number 2 Cadenza. Let's see if you and I like that horse. And you and I are back simpatico again. I have 628. And Paul is going 629. So we are both in syncs with Lorelei Lee. Let me bring her up here. So the number 6, Lorelei Lee, another one making her second start for Mike Maker. What'd you like about this one at 4-1?
I think the race flow is going to play to her advantage, Pete. I think this race looks like it's going to be set up for a closer.
And here you go.
See
the
fast pace.
Yep.
And you see that 6 nicely tucked in there. I'd have no problem with that trip. The way it looks. Obviously, first time out, the horse didn't get away really cleanly. Maybe wants more than 6 furlongs, Pete, but I think I'm okay with the 6 furlongs because of if the race flow is what it looks like on paper. One horse ran back. Only one horse came back out of that maiden race the last time, improved her buyer figure by 16 points, which I think was a good sign.
Yep.
Maker is, Maker is Maker. This horse is by Nyquist, who lives a few stalls down from Cody's Wish, FYI, at awesome. Darley in Lexington. But primarily to answer your question, it was race flow. And, when we start talking about other horses, Pete, the conversation we just had about the 2 in the last race, I think we could have a similar conversation about the 2 in this race.
Yeah, and I didn't have I agree with you there. I didn't have too much to add here. I do like that on debut she did win here going the 6 furlong, so she did break the maiden at the same configuration. And the one thing, and I'm a sucker for this, so this is something I generally look for, is she won the race, was training pretty well coming in, runs nicely, gets a win, comes out, has a solid work on the 7th, and then a nice work on the 14th. going 5 furlongs in a minute and 3. So I always just like looking at that to say, hey, this horse maybe is holding their form pretty well, so is still coming in sharp. So I really like this one. And for any Power Picks tip sheet subscribers, you may or may not see this horse on the Power Pick tip sheet, since I wrote the Turfway portion of it. So I don't want to give too much away, but this horse may somehow work into something that's going on there. That's all I'll say.
With Maker, with Maker, Pete, once they tend to stay good. Maker's one of those guys, we've seen him with turf horses resurrect so many, but once he gets them good, they tend to stay good.
I agree. Yeah. And that's definitely what you want. And speaking of a trainer whose horses sometimes stay pretty good, we have the number 2 Cadenza at 5-2, which we both have in second for Brad Cox and Stone Street and Luan Machado. So there's some obvious things to like about this one. What would you like the most about this one?
Well, I mean, I'm a little ambivalent, Pete. This is what I would call a defensive A on my grid. Again, as we talked about, the same sale, they paid $385 for Cadenza, Stone Street.
And off only at 25. So just for people like this one, Charlatan only goes for 25 and they paid $385, which is a nice gap. Whereas the other one, I think it was a Gun Runner, which goes for about $250 or $225 and sold for $250. So this one is a little bit more impressive of a sale price, I think, also when you look at it. But that's just the way I think about it sometimes.
Yeah, and I will say this, Pete. This horse debuted on Whitney Day last year. I was there and went off as the favorite. And, one thing that's not in dispute is trainers run what they think are going to be very good maidens on big days, right?
Yes.
Whitney Day, Travers Day, Derby Day, that's not in dispute. So they obviously thought this one was going to be something. Took a lot of money in that race and just kind of stopped. Brad came back right away, went to the turf. I don't think that's necessarily a great sign unless that was the plan all along.
I was going to ask you that. Like, what do you think about a horse that in 3 starts tried all 3 surfaces? I mean, is that just circumstance to you, or is that just like, hey, we're trying to figure out what she's best at?
Again, at that sale price, I think they're going to see if she can run on dirt at first time out as a 2-year-old. But I do not think it's ideal that she went immediately to the turf, unless that was the plan all along and they just wanted to start her somewhere. Now, wanting to start her somewhere, there's a lot of other spots than you could have picked than a maiden special on Whitney Day.
Yeah.
So that's why it's kind of mixed messages, right? Took all the money in the turf race and ran well in the turf race. And, obviously now the horse was off and there's no turf to run on. And Brad, unless you want to go to Florida, he did not opt to take this horse to Florida. I will say, Pete, that Charlatan with turf sprinters, his turf sprint progeny win at 21%. And his synthetic sprint progeny win at 25%.
Yeah,
so
not a lot, but definitely been successful.
Yeah, it's small samples. Yeah, I think you're gonna the synthetic samples in general are going to be smaller, obviously, because thank God there are fewer races. I'm going to become a synthetic convert once I have to play it all winter next year.
I was going to say you better start liking a lot more when
I'm going to be yes. But so again, this horse ran okay last time. I don't know what you thought. Little trouble at the start. Put up a decent number. Obviously, that at least on the buyer side, a 75. Come back with a 75, and right in the picture here. So again, would I bet this horse to win? Not in a million years, but I will have her as an A. She might just be a little more talented than the rest of them.
And that's the way you have to. And she's definitely going to be at that 5-2, if not a little bit lower, because of the Cox, Machado, and like you said, the purchase price. This is one of those horses I look at, and people could read my scratchy notes on the screen if they would like. But this is the horse where I look after and go, sometimes I do it if I leave a horse out of my pick 5 and then I go back and I read my note and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? These notes are fantastic. And I didn't include the horse on the ticket, but this is one I would include. But just a few things I had. From a buyer standpoint, you see that incremental progress going up and you get the top on the synthetic, which you like to see since that's where we are. Same thing from a time form. Didn't improve each one, but got the lifetime time form top. It's technically off another layoff, but now we're second off a little bit less of a layoff, so maybe a little bit sharper here. And then you see Brad Cox is hot at the meet. Also, 36% win, 64% in the money. First-time Lasix on synth, and if you get rid of first-time starters. So horses that have run add Lasix, he's 36% on the win end on the synthetic. So again, it's Brad Cox. He knows what the hell he's doing. And the one thing you do like is 2 back on the turf. This horse at least passed horses in 1. And like we said, I think this could be one that could sit off, work out, just a really good trip. Let's hit real quick. We'll hit the 9 because this is one you had. A lot of alpha, 9-2. Is this one you have as sort of a win contender? Or you just sort of filling out your top 3 here?
Yeah, it was yes, B.
B.
B literally will be a B. I'm giving away my grid here. I shouldn't be. But again, service. What Rodriguez horse woke up last time. I'm not sure where that race came from, but it is. To your point about horses doing better on different surfaces, did marginally better the first time on the synth at Turfway, but just really woke up last time. I wish I were on this horse last time at 10-1.
Yeah.
That would have been the time. But
there's another one that added. We're seeing a lot of like a horse adds Lasix, and again, we never know if that moves them up, so it's question. But you look at it and go, okay, Lasix and second time on synth. Was that the reason that this horse moved forward? Who the hell knows? But at least it's something to hang your hat on, I think.
Yeah, I agree. And well, of course, again, they turned 3, and
true,
some.
True.
That's
they also mature. Yeah,
you can't run. You can't run on it as a 2-year-old. So, So more of like a backup, but. I don't know, Pete. I'm glad to see you like the 6. I might be leaning on this 6 a little more than planned.
I really do. I really do like the 6. I want to talk about this 8. I don't want to stay on this race too long, but this is one that I thought was a little funky. So, and it's a Godolphin. So, and for once, I have the Godolphin, and Paul does not have the Godolphin in his top 3. But if you look at the debut, only got a 50 buyer, so that doesn't necessarily jump out at you, but broke the maiden pretty handily. Then they tried the horse on the turf, and I watched this race, and we don't need to show it. It's not that important. But this horse was even money favorite on the turf, second out, and literally just got stuck in the gate. And basically was, when you watch the race, Paul, I don't know if you would have watched this one, but maybe after the show, go back and watch it because I felt bad. Because if you had this horse at even money, you were pissed because this horse literally was stuck in the gate and couldn't get out. And then just as 10th and got wrapped up pretty early. But I thought that if you toss that one, the debut hasn't come back well. But if you look, the Dam has a grade 1 winner. Fair Maiden. Let's look at Fair Maiden a bit here. Fair Maiden ran first 2 races on the synth, second, and then wins by 14, and then had no, that was it. That was the one I was talking about. So the horse won by 14, and this was became a pretty good horse who actually won the La Brea. So Fair Maiden. So it comes from some pretty good stock at least there. And the only other thing, again, we're adding Lasix now as a newly turned 3-year-old. Will that move this horse up? We had a solid work on the synth, has been working consistently on the synth coming in. This was just one I thought at 12-1, I thought would probably hold at that number because the horse lost by 51 lengths last time. And people see that and they're like, oh, this horse is garbage. I'm not going to bet this horse. But I just thought it was an interesting one to keep an eye on, maybe for underneath, if not the win end.
Yeah, I'll have her as a C. If in the unlikely event I get all my A's home, I don't want to get beat by a Godolphin. So,
What do you mean unlikely? That's a lock. Come on, man. How could
but
you not get your
I hear
A's?
what you're saying. Every right to move forward off that maiden win, which was on synthetic at Presque Isle, and don't sleep on Owen Hardy. Okay,
No,
Owen Hardy is a very good trainer.
he hasn't had the greatest of meets yet, but we can break that. But I look at it and go, if this horse broke well and won at even money last time, what would the odds be? I assume the odds would be a hell of a lot lower, and probably
Yes.
and probably wouldn't even be in this race most likely. So
Yes, it's an interesting it's an interesting spot for this horse. I would agree.
Yeah. So we'll see. Again, I just wanted to make sure we talked about that one just because I thought she was a little interesting. Let's get to the feature. So the 9th we have the John Battaglia Memorial Stakes. Purse 175,000, going a mile and a 16th, obviously on the synthetic. And this, as we talked about, is a 20-point Derby prep race, and it's basically the prep for the Jeff Ruby, which we will be seeing later. And your favorite horse, Paul, Rich Strike, came out of this race. He ran 4th on that day in this race, and then came back to win the Kentucky Derby to most of our chagrin. But let's see what we have here. We have 12 in the main body with one also eligible, and we have the favorite again 5-2. I think every race has a 5-2 favorite. The number 1 Street Beast for Ben Colebrook and Luan Machado again. Let's see where you and I are going here, and you and I are very much simpatico again, my friend. I am going 7-11-9. You are going 7-12-11. We're both going with a bit of a price here. Let's talk about the number 7. Atfield, who's making his 4th start for Thomas Morley with Ricardo Santana at 8-1. What do you like? I was pleasantly surprised because I thought this was a really, really tough race, and the fact that we landed on the same price horse, I thought was a bit surprising.
Well, Pete, there's plenty of room in the boat, but let's just hope it's not the Titanic. And if it is, let's hope we play the role of Rose and not Jack.
Yes, I want to be on the door. I do not want to be frozen to death, for sure. Yes, I agree with that.
Let's talk about before we get into the significance of the name. This horse is run well on turf, really all 3 times. That middle race, for a grade 3, there was nothing wrong with that race, splitting the field in that race. The Vacomas have proven to be able to run on the synth, which makes sense. Vacoma is by Candy Ride, who was a really, really good influence there. I think it's interesting that Tom ships this horse down here for this race. Is there a little Derby fever syndrome going on? Yes,
I mean,
of course.
Not? Yeah,
why not? I'm sure he'd be happy to stay right there for the aforementioned Jeff Ruby that you talked about.
Yep.
I think I thought Santana rode this horse very well last time. Now look, mile and a 16th on turf at Aqueduct is not a mile and a 16th on synth at Turfway, but we know the distance won't be an issue. And, I just have to say, Pete, I don't want to go off on a tangent, but John Atfield, for whom this horse was named, there's a lot of characters at the racetrack, and you see them in the mornings on the backstretch. And I can't tell you how many times, and I didn't know John, but I can't tell you how many times I walked by him on the backstretch at Saratoga. Morning, John. How you doing? Morning. Worked for Kelly Brain before he worked for Tom Morley. Of course, Roger Atfield, his Hall of Fame father, died very suddenly, late 24 at only age 59. And I know this has been an emotional horse for both Tom Morley and his wife, the great Maggie Wolfendale Morley. So that's doesn't mean there's a more likely chance he's going to win. But, Pete, I always root for the story. That's what I do for a living, is root for the story. But
obviously.
No, I think 8-1 would be more than fair. I don't know about you, Pete. I'm not so sure we're going to get that. Coming off 2 wins in New York, even though they're on turf, my feeling is I think he's going to be closer to 5, but I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, no, I agree, but I don't think it'll be too low. So I think
Yeah.
I think anywhere 5 and up, I would play this horse. But you hit most of the spots that I would agree with. Again, just from a breeding standpoint, if we're looking at the synth, I think it was yeah, we see Street Boss on the dam side is the Grand Dam one, and this horse was pretty decent on the synth for us here. I mean, this was all sprinting, but you're talking about Grade 1 winners here, winning the Bing Crosby, running third in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. So at least we know that, and like you said, the Candy Rides, they could pretty much do anything, and Vacomas are 18% in synthetic roots, and actually, I think even on their side, Mona de Mama was also a horse that won a Grade 3 on the synth. Again, sprinting, but at least in the breeding, I think the synth is not going to be a problem for this horse. And I just think there's talent. Even the loss in the Futurity, Intricate Spirit, turned out to be a horse that ran and took a little bit of money in the Breeders' Cup that year, so last year. So I think there's a lot of talent here. And again, I think the move to the synth, I think I'd be a lot more comfortable with than the move straight to the dirt first time out. So I like this one as well. Let's go down. We'll hit a few of these, obviously, since this is the feature. You have the 12. We're going to go all the way out. 2 Out Hero. Tough post, but I think this is a tough horse as well. What'd you like about this one? Broke the maiden by 12 on the synth and then moved to the turf. But what do you like here?
Yeah, well, and that's just it, Pete. I think that race was okay. That race, and I mean, Woodbine is fine. This is an Al Gold horse that Al paid $244, which is a good ticket. Warfront out of a Liam's Map mare, so turf/synthetic is no surprise.
Yep.
The fact that I do like the fact, we talk a lot about intent, Pete, that they right off the bat they ran this horse on synthetic. Kevin Attard is obviously a top trainer up there. And I also like the fact, Pete, that off that maiden win, right into stakes races. And I guess if you win by 12.5, why not, right? So,
yeah,
won a listed stakes, and
that one came back pretty good too. It came back.
That came back pretty good, and there was, that summer, that the summer is you typically end up with Breeders' Cup horses coming out of that race. So I think this horse is got a really good chance. 12 is not ideal going this distance. So that's going to be on Mr. Hernandez to make the trip. But we do like the fact, speaking of the trip, that Ramon Hernandez comes down from the Great White North to ride this horse.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of positives with this horse.
Yeah, I did too. I think I liked a bunch of horses here, so I was sort of spready. But I was the worry I had with a little bit, and this maybe isn't a good concern, was there was a little touch of regression last time where it didn't move forward. But again, it was a Grade 1 race, but it was the stretch out there. So I was like, well, does this horse maybe a little stronger sprinting? We'll see. That's more of just a question I had than anything else. So I don't. That's one you just don't know until you see them do it, and we could see that here. And again, I think the only thing was the post too, and that's why I wound up dropping this one just a touch. But I think is a super high contender, and you could see by the 7-2. You and I both have. I have the 11 in second. You have the 11 full effort in third. I think this one just looks pretty obvious on paper. I mean, was good on the turf, was improving, came back as the first race as a 3-year-old back in that Leonidas, losing to Street Beast, but Street Beast sort of got away, and this one was a little further back, and I think it wasn't a ton of pace. I think we should get a little bit more pace here. My only concern was the dam side. Call me the squeeze. 0 for 9 wins on the synthetic. So that was a little bit of something. But again, it's Brad Cox who's on fire at the meet. What do you like about this one? My worry was, is this one just going to leave himself a little bit too much to do? But, I mean, if he gets some pace in front, I think could be flying late.
Yeah, well, one of the things I don't like, Peter, I think this horse is going to be undervalued in this race
Yeah.
because of everything you just mentioned. It's a relatively high-priced horse, a Vinny Viola horse. Vinny Viola and Jack Wolf Starlight Racing. It is Brad Cox. Cheminade, who is not winning at a high percentage here, but is a real solid jockey, especially on turf/synthetic. Again, this is more of a defensive horse for me in the sequence, Pete. But look, Brad gets them into the Derby from all different corners, and it's certainly, this is the race. This is a race where, your Derby temperature might be like 98.8. You might not have full-blown Derby fever syndrome, but if you win this race, it can go up to 102.4.
Yeah,
right?
pretty quickly.
So, but it's, having said that, I think it presents an opportunity because, first of all, if you pick up 20 points, you might only have to run second or third in one more race.
Yeah.
Right? To get in. And, there's nothing that says you have to stay on the synthetic if you think you have a dirt horse. Now, this horse has been on the turf throughout, same with 2 Out Heroes. So you would think that if they're going to stay on the trail, it would be here. But, you mentioned Rich Strike, and, we've seen other horses run respectable. This Turfway path, is not totally unrealistic.
Who was it? Flying Mohawk? Was
Flying Mohawk
who ran fourth or so hit the superish maybe in the.
I was going to say fourth or fifth, yeah.
Somewhere, yeah,
Whit
maybe
Beckman. It was a Whit Beckman horse.
Yeah. And this is one too that's going to be running late, and you figure the distance go longer, maybe okay. And this is one that could accumulate points just from hitting the board, even if he doesn't actually win the races. I want to speed through a couple more so we can get to the last one. I had the 9 Stop the Car at 8-1. I just think this is a horse that, again, tried the Lecomte. So it was pretty impressive in the first 2. It was 5-1 basically in the Lecomte and didn't run very well at all. And now they're going to try the synth out here. On the maximum securities are 17% win. The dam side, 4 for 7 in the money in synth routes, has synth in the breeding all the way through. So I thought the move to the synth is probably okay. And maybe my question would be maybe just shot a little too high in the Lecomte and wasn't ready for it. But this is a little bit of a softer field, obviously. Now you just have to figure out if the surface change works. But I think this one could be sneaky, and there's some talent there.
Yeah, I definitely shot too high, and the other thing, Pete, is I'm not so sure how good that race, the Lecomte, is going to come back for any of them, let alone this one. I thought Golden Tempo was one of the great bet againsts last weekend. I didn't do
run
much
terrible.
right.
It wasn't terrible.
They ran all right.
Yeah.
But Wade wasn't winning that. But hey, look at Brendan Walsh also knows how to get a horse to the Derby. It's kind of, we've talked a lot tonight, Pete, about prices and sale prices and sire prices. How about Maximum Security, who, for better or worse, did cross the line first in the Kentucky Derby. Now, got taken down and perhaps had some chemical assistance in light of what happened to his trainer since then. But, certainly an honest racehorse. $3,500. Anyone.
Crazy,
we could take a collection among our listeners and breed to Maximum Security, Pete, if we had the mare.
I got to tell my cousin Nick, he was looking for a sire for a filly that they bought, or for a filly that they bought.
There's a bargain. I don't know what he's thrown, but there's a bargain.
The last one I want to hit real quick, we should talk about the one, Street Beast, since neither one of us has him in our top 3, and he is the 5-2 favorite. Did you just not like this horse from a pace standpoint? Did you think that maybe the last one sort of went his way and this time it won't, kind of thing? Is that where you're at?
Yes. That, I guess if he runs that race, I think he did go to the lead last time. That was for the first time. I think from down on the inside, it's going to be, I think he'll have less of a choice. And, who says that's not the way they want to run anyway after the last time. But put up that time for him again, Pete. I looked at it earlier, but
yeah.
I want to see the
the pace.
That was Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. That even if he does get to the lead, I mean, that was kind of a walk around the park last time, wasn't it?
I
And
thought so. Yeah.
yeah, so again, that combined with the price, the fact that if he doesn't hit it and he gets involved at all, and sometimes it looks to be a faster pace, and if he gets involved in something like that, you know, again, it's mostly value play. I'm going to have him on my grid.
Yeah.
But as far as on the top line, I thought more of a play against.
I'm with you. No, I sort of agree. I wanted to get your take on it. Let's hit the last race. We're getting a little long in time here since we have wire to wire coming up at 9:30, covering the coast to coast pick 5. So we'll try and
I'm
zip
flipping coins. I'm flipping my coins to see if they came up the same way.
This one was tough, and we joked about this one. This wasn't the easiest race to handicap. We got a maiden claiming 7,500 going a mile on the synth, purse 23,000. We have in the main body a field of 12 with 2 actually pretty useful also eligibles if they get in as well. Another 5-2 favorite, the number 2 Money Mamolo, with another Luan Machado favorite on top, and we are going with. I am going 9-10-4. Paul is going 3-9-5. So let's zip through this one real quick, Paul. You're going with the 3, Rachel's Wagon at 8-1. So you're going with a little bit of price here, a little bit of a drop down. What'd you like about this one?
Yeah, Pete, I got your text earlier today or whenever it was.
Yeah.
When talking about how tough this race was. So honestly, with that in mind, and I will tell you, and again, this is a little more than anecdotal. Go look at the prices in the last race at Turfway in general. General. It just seems like it's bombs away. So I said going into this, and I did have the morning lines because I handicapped late this week. I said I am, sometimes in those pick and pray contests, you say, I don't want anything below 4-1, even if he's going to win. I said, I don't want anything under 5-1 in this with this type of race. So that's how I started with that. So that's how I that's how I didn't end up with the 2, how I didn't end up with the 4. I just started with that premise. But, again, yes, this is a drop on the 3. Now he's had 9 chances, 4 of them on synthetic. His best race, I think that Woodbine race, Pete, for 15,000. This is for 7,500. Yeah. I think that Woodbine race, is kind of logical here.
Yeah, I think so.
So again, honestly, Pete, if I play this sequence, it will very likely be a caveman, I think, and I would be inclined to go very thin in some other places and probably get knocked out in the interest of going as close to all here as I can.
You don't have to tell me twice. That is exactly where I was. I did laugh, though, because I thought I had a bit of a reach, and I liked this 9 horse, R. Elliott, and then I saw that you had him in second, so I felt a little bit good here. But again, this is a horse, when you look on the surface, you go, okay, they debuted for maiden 50. The horse didn't run a step at 97-1. Then they dropped to this level and didn't run that well again. So you're like, well, what the hell could you like about this horse, especially drawing outside? So it drew the 10 out of 12, 10 out of 10. So this horse has not had post-position draw luck in any way. But here's the things I like. It got an 80 time form for the debut. Now, again, ran 9th, so didn't really earn it, but it was a tougher race and sort of just didn't do much, but at least had an 80 time form and was a little bit longer, so went the mile then. Then they dropped down to the sprint, but that was 6.5, and as you could see a little bit here, that day was maybe favoring speed or the race favored speed, so DRF sort of tags that. So this one was a little bit farther back. Now, all I liked was we're stretching out. Maybe this horse wants to go longer, and the breeding says longer is better for this horse. And now we're at this distance going longer, which I think this horse maybe wants to do. Hutch Holsapple, 30% wins.
Oh, yeah, Hutch.
Obviously. 30% wins, 61% in the money in synthetic routes. And from that time form breeding standpoint, that little number had 100 in synthetic roots. So from a synthetic standpoint, this horse looks like this should work. Maybe what it was is last time the sprint wasn't his friend and now stretching out. So I was taking a shot here with a horse that I think will definitely hold those double-digit odds.
Hey, look, Pete, I told you how I looked at the race, and this 12-1 was, but Pete, have you ever seen, now granted, it was 50,000 down to 7,500, which is a precipitous drop. However, still maiden claiming. Have you ever seen a horse go from 96-1 to 8-1 off a 9th out of 12 finish?
No.
That must have been a key race, Pete.
They had to bet somebody is all I could read out of that one, right? They had to.
Yeah. Hey, look, like I said, folks, if you get a 5-2 home in this race, you know, good luck. You're getting screwed on the price, no matter who it is. That's all I can tell you.
Well, let's jump into, we'll cut there, because again, I think you could probably talk about every horse and none of them you're going to have really great cases for. I think all the way through you're going to be stretching. So I kind of like the 10. We didn't talk about Scoville. He looks like a horse that at least logically and from a figure standpoint, he went up to maiden 15 now, but he was 55-1, ran second. Now coming back down. So none of these are really stickouts in any way. Let's jump into our best bets, and then we'll sort of wrap it up here. Paul's best bet, he's going to keep it simple. In the 8th, we're going with a daily double, 6-9 into 7-12. Anything you want to say about that one?
Well, that's the race trying to beat. Yeah, and trying to beat Cadenza, the favorite, and Gracie's Delight, the second favorite, who I'll be using. So I think double-wise, those two. And then it was going into the feature. You know, we talked about Atfield, who's going to be a pretty good price, and that 2-out Hero, which I'm liking more and more after talking about the race. So that's those are the four I'm using.
I like it. And then I'm going to jump into I have two best bets, both in the 9th. Basically, we have a daily double, 7-11 into 9-10. So that's going with Atfield and the 11, whose name is completely escaping me, but into that 9 horse we talked there. So I think if we can get like Atfield into that 9 horse, that would pay. And then in the 9th, again, I'm going with the 7. And I'm just doing a tri-key box, which means you get the 7 in any of the 3 spots with the 1, 2, 8, 9, 11, 12. I just feel like that race is kind of wide open. And if we can get a couple prices in there, I think that will be something that's advantageous.
Pete, I find it funny you used the doubles into the last race, because my best bet was going to be don't use any play that involves the last race.
That involves, and I mostly did it because I like that. I thought that 9 was funky at 12-1, so I was like, screw it, I'll take the best bet there.
Hey,
and again,
I'm with you.
Before we sign off, and no rant tonight since we're running a little long. I don't know if you had anything big, but again, right at this in 15 minutes. Make sure you come back 9:30 Eastern. Coast to Coast Pick 5 being covered on our show Wire to Wire, hosted by Noah Maher. And again, if you see down below, real quick, hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button, do all that kind of stuff for us. Anything you want to sign off with, Paul, before we head out of here?
No, I just want to thank our favorite Uncle Howard, for leaving us with this phenomenal card of racing. It's good when your boss shows confidence in you like that. It really gives you the motivation to move on. So really, really honored that Uncle Howard would leave us with this card to handicap.
Yeah, I wonder if that was planned, with maybe like the Fountain of Youth coming next week, and last week was the Risen Star. It just so happened that the week he decides to take off, we get this not as high of quality. We're not going to knock the fine folks at Turfway.
Yeah, but the handicap, the banter was without equal.
I mean, the show was fantastic. It's not our fault if if that last race isn't the most highest of quality.
And I'll be betting. By the way, Pete, Saturday night, there's nothing I like better than sitting in the recliner betting Turfway. So I'll be betting. Don't worry.
I will. So I have a funny lead in. So I'll do a little personal note to close off. My son, Jackson, who has popped on the podcast a few times, he is co-starring in a musical this weekend, with the main show being Saturday night. For any Disney fans out there, he is playing Maui from Moana. in a show on. He's performing Saturday night and Sunday, so I will be going right from his show. Hopefully, after that, right into this Turfway Park Pick 5. I mean, what better night could you possibly have? But I want to wish my little
best
guy
of luck,
luck.
Jackson. Break a leg, figuratively, of course.
Obviously, but he will be performing and flexing those Maui muscles. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll show a clip on a future show if I get
That'd be
the
great.
chance to. That would
Love
be
it.
awesome. But then we roll right into this, and hopefully, like you said, Paul, I think at the worst, this one's going to pay. Big fields, not big favorites, and a lot of these races, I think we have a chance for some prices to come.
I mean, we're wrong on that a lot. A lot of times it does chuck out, but I think this is a very legitimate chance to be a 5-figure sequence. I really do.
Some Jim Pilar put in the chat earlier that we should maybe we should probably go in on a group ticket since we had so many since we had so many of the same.
Draw it up, Pete. Just tell me what half of it costs, and I'm in.
I always like that. All right. Well, for my good friend here, Paul Halloran, I am Pete Visco for joining you for episode 455 of Picks and Ponies, covering the late Pick 5 at Turfway. And like our Uncle Howard always likes to say to close this out, for everyone playing this really, really tough sequence, go ahead and crush your bets Saturday at Turfway Park. Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Good night.
If you have not followed his Triple H horse racing podcast, you're missing out. It's one of the best podcasts in the country.